Welcome to the Age of Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Today is, can you believe it, December 30th, 2015. This will actually be our very last radio show that will be done in 2015. And as many of you know, on Wednesdays we do interviews with activists and people who can bring us solutions. And I thought it'd be really awesome to have Thomas Ackermann back. He's an artist in Canada who does fantastic work. I'll let you talk to him, tell you about his website there. But we often have conversations. He's been in this Fuku fight, I guess, with me since I've known him. He came to me through Kevin Blanch, and we become good friends, and he's quite a philosopher. So I thought I'd bring him back on the show to be interviewed again. So, Tom, are you here?
Hello, Lonnie. I'm here. Yes.
Hi. How are you?
Hi. I am fine, and I want to wish you the very best, and the people listening. And I'm thinking, you know, it's called Christmas, Hanukkah, with the celebrations, and I somehow think sometimes that why don't we act with this good, well-wishing feeling all the time? Why do we wait just for like a season? Why not all seasons, right? It's like,
well, that's what I do.
Exactly. That's why we're friends. I appreciate your introduction. I feel you're a very good friend. And, you know, we haven't met, but that's the power of YouTube and internet.
Yeah, the Skype, yeah. I mean, we haven't actually met face-to-face, but we have talked many times.
That's what I think.
And we do the Symposium for Life. We banter around ideas. You know, one of the things that's, you know, this has been on my mind, this whole thing with St. Louis. We were just talking about it before we went on the air. Every time I go to the radio show now, I go to the Facebook page. There's 3 Facebook pages on Facebook that are just dedicated by the people of St. Louis. They created it. It's called Coldwater Creek, Just the Facts, Please. Humans of Westlake Landfill and the Westlake Landfill. And those 3 sites, you can get a plethora of information just reading the comments, because it's basically the citizens going there. So many of you know that the state of Missouri and the entire Missouri, the river is just overflowing and it's flooding now. And the EPA, their official EPA website is saying, yes, we know that there is some overflow, but no radiation has leaked into the environment. However, they do have a phone number for people to call. His name is John Rankin from FUSRAP, the agency from the EPA, and you can call him, and they will come in and test your house for radiation if you happen to be part of that flooding. So I wanted to give that number out. This came from the Facebook page, Coldwater Creek, Just the Facts, Please. And it was posted as a comment on this woman was talking about her dad's basement has been flooded, and she wanted to know if that was part of it, of the area, the Coldwater Creek contamination area. So the number that you call if you're living in St. Louis and you're listening to this is 314-260-3905. That's John Rankins, Rankins, with FuseWrap. And FuseWrap is the formally used site remediation accessibility plan or something like that. It's the EPA basically going in to clean up super toxic mess. There's this whole division that does that. So I wanted to get that out in the open before we continue with this interview, because I think that what's going on in St. Louis is indicative of the rest of us anywhere this nuclear monster is. So I think that it is really imperative and up to us to make a decision that we are going to confront this nuclear stuff, and we are going to not, instead of just pretending like it's not real, which is really what people are doing. Tom, what do you think of that? Like this is honestly, I have really made a decision not to cuss since I've been dealing with the people of St. Louis, because I know that it offends them. They're pretty God-fearing Christian types, and I don't want to have them just listen to my swearing instead of the message. So, but I am beyond words at their passivity. People are just living in this area while it's being flooded, and they're going to move back in this area after it's been flooded.
I guess we'll have to cuss amongst each other now only, huh?
Yeah.
I'll come up with some new words. Lonnie, you know that when we just began the conversation before you came on air, I said my whole thrust, idea, feeling is to understand something about why we're in the position we're in. Why are things the way they are? Why have we ended up in this such a perilous time? Under our watch, you've said, on your watch, my watch, all our watches, and not Casablanca. I love that scene in the Casablanca where the two Germans are talking to each other. What watch? Anyway, not to be flippant about this, I've been reflecting exactly on this idea, a feeling of what is this passivity, and I'm working myself up to a new series of paintings I'm going to call the Pacific, and I'm going to use a way of working. Whenever I think of a new series of paintings, I try to adjust it to a very specific way of working. Like a lot of artists just have a technique that they use over and over again. But the way I work is I have to invent a way of working that reflects the subject, the feelings that I have. So I'm working myself up to this, and I was thinking, I think this sort of answers your question to some extent. And I was thinking about being the Christian holiday, the Trinity. This theory, this thought that the Holy Ghost and God the Father, the Son, and you got Mary sort of in the background. But my feeling when I'm thinking about the Pacific and the devastation that is being caused, documented by Dana Durnford. People that haven't listened to Dana Durnford, beautiful girl by Dana, really need to look at his incredible synopsis of the situation we're in.
In fact, let me jump in here. They can actually go to livestream.com at 10:30 Pacific Standard Time. Most days, I think he does it 6 days a week, and does a live stream. And actually, I was watching it yesterday. It's hilarious. He's hilariously funny. He's got a very funny sense of humor. But what he's done, not only has he gone up 15,000 miles up and down the west coast of Canada to document the lack of marine life there, but he also archived from the very beginning all the E&E news stories and headlines and videotapes from the very start of Fukushima, since it started happening. He, as we heard in our interview when he was on, he was studying nuclear radiation because he was interested in stopping the uranium mining in Canada when Fukushima happened. So he's very up to speed on what it causes. And honestly, his live feeds, he doesn't just go on and on about the same thing. He actually really does talk about the different headlines that have just been buried in the news, like how much our governments knew and how they made a choice. It was a choice for them to not tell the people of the world that this is happening.
Impeccable research. The man has in-depth knowledge on the functioning of the minutia. He says he's not a scientist, but he talks like he has a complete and total understanding of the mechanics behind all of this as well, which is superb. It's wonderful, and he's actually now exposed the deaths that have already occurred from Fukushima. He did this in one of his live shows about the homeless people, and
Right.
no one of knowledge will step near this plant. Nobody will get
Right.
near this place. And they always show pictures of these. He shows, this is the funny part, in these paper suits. Like, I don't get that, you know?
Well, I do get it. The paper suits is because certain levels of radiation are stopped by paper.
Like like the alpha rays.
Yeah, so that's why they only need paper suits, because the gamma rays go through everything. It doesn't matter.
Right, yeah, and so it doesn't. In fact, I think when they tell us about moon landings, in order to get through the Van Allen belt, you need 6 feet of lead to protect you from the highly radioactive emissions that are gathered there from the sun. All the neutrons that are emitted that come from the sun are gathered in that magnetic belt, the Van Allen belt, and you need 6 feet of lead to protect yourself so you don't come out looking like a piece of bacon at the other end.
Well, that's a separate show, Tom, when you're talking about. Let's really seriously. We can really get into that one, but that's a whole separate topic.
But it's also radiation, you see, the Van Allen belt.
Well, you know what my theory is about the radiation is they have been brainwashed into believing that a little bit of radiation helps heal you. This whole radiation treatment therapy that goes on is that they give radiation to little kids.
Yeah.
I mean, they're radiating people. How many times did I read on the nuclear alert they put the wrong type of radiation in somebody, or they didn't give them enough, or they gave them too much? Oops. I mean, the incompetence surrounding radiation goes straight into the medical industry as well. And to me, I'm dumbfounded. Like the people, I think it's the normalcy bias, Tom. What do you think of that idea? I think that people want to stay in their homes. We don't want to have to move away. Like my daughter here on the West Coast, she has no intention of leaving the West Coast, no matter how the radiation gets, how stiff it is.
My feeling about that is conformity is a philosophy. It's not just something. Complacency is part of that, but I think we're learning to conform more than ever in probably the history of civilization. We are the most conformist bunch ever to have lived on this planet, which is why we're in the position we're in, because we just go along and we don't question, we don't wonder. It's what Schellenberger said, critical thinking, and critical thinking is required, critical thinking and heart. Both things are really, really important now. And when, Lonnie, you talk to people and I want to just sort of, you have me on the show and it's an honor to talk about all of this, but I'm not the information guy because, like in art school, I had a quick story, a guy next to me who could draw from the model in an hour what took me a week. And I decided, you know what, let that guy take care of that part of it, right? I'm not going to reproduce reality the way he can do because it would take me just too long. I want to do other stuff. So my thing is, there are a lot of people like yourself and Dana, Kevin, who have amazing YouTubes and information, and you're reading the book and it's coming out. So my thing, what I want to do on my channel and express to people, the conformity is civilization. We are in a civilization I call the culture of death. We're conforming on every level, and it happens every day. And then my feeling about how we get out of this, right? How do we get out of this feeling of complacency based on conformity? So I can just give myself as an example. I talk about myself. And I was listening to a broadcast by a fellow called Richie Allen, who I really like, by the way. He brings in interesting people. And he had a guy called Robert Morningstar. And he was talking about the cosmic Jesus. And he was talking about Lucifer and the story of Lucifer trying to kill the cosmic Jesus and all of this kind of stuff. And what I find is that people are withdrawing in a shell of eternity that doesn't actually exist. It's like I talk about eternity, and just bear with me a minute. I'm going to come to the Trinity here. And the Trinity is based on, we have lost the feeling of the Trinity. And I'm not talking about Jesus and God, the guy and the whoever. I'm talking about the principle of our Trinity is consciousness is everything. And then we have life. And then comes the crucial part in this Trinity, which is conscience. Conscience. What this Trinity, it goes together. And you can't have one without the other. And what we're seeing now
Say them again, Tom.
Okay. Consciousness is what a lot of these guru types like to talk about. Consciousness is like the last frontier. You see everybody in an orange jumpsuit talking. I'm being a little nasty. They wear this orange color, the Easterns, and they talk about consciousness all the time. But why bother? Because consciousness is everything. Why do you need to tell anybody everything is everything? I mean, that's like what it sounds like to me. So you have
like
consciousness.
Water is water, right?
Yeah, it's like, exactly. So you have consciousness is the tree, the rocks, the buildings, the cars, your brain cells, everything by its consciousness. And then the next level that happens as a result of this consciousness, you have this amazing mystery that brings forth what is life. And we're not the only ones in the cosmos with life. I'm convinced of that. That would be just ridiculous from the point of view that, you know, some people insist, the church always said that the sun revolved around the earth. Actually, that may be true. Some people are talking. But anyway, we're not the center. We're just part of this thing called life. And then as a human being, my next level of something that really matters to me, especially now, is what I call, and other people understand this term, is conscience. And conscience is life and consciousness without the way we experience. Without conscience is absolutely lethal. It's a really bad combination. If you just have life and consciousness and no conscience, well, we end up with the nuclear destruction and all the other destruction.
Right, with the EPA putting something out saying, no, there's no way the runoff water could be dispersing radioactivity.
Exactly. Why can they do that? Because they've got consciousness, they've got life, but they got no conscience. So the what I would say is I don't want to invoke Catholicism like the Holy Trinity, but for me it literally is this Trinity, this combination of what I understand to be existence, the way we experience it, have these three elements. And if you miss with the first two, we have control over life now as we see it. I mean, consciousness will continue, but life may end, and definitely without life there is no conscience. So this Trinity for human beings needs to be intact in order for things to work. And it's not working because the last part is missing, and the second part may very well alter beyond conscience being able to be evoked again. So interesting sort of over this Christmas thing for me to reflect on this, and it's helping me develop my next series of paintings. I'm going to work on paper, which is a very flimsy material, but in the way I'm going to work with it, it will almost make the drawings itself. That's what I'm thinking. It's kind of like letting that element of conscience rule my paper without me being too much of an interference, and teaching me what it means to evoke this visually, like it's a metaphor, obviously, a painting, but it has to represent this part, this conscience that I go on about. And the reason I think we're in the shitter that we're in is because this third part of the Trinity is not invoked yet.
Well, when you think about it, everything in our culture is telling us to ignore our conscience. Everything. Like that, we're just being placated and being told, don't worry, you know, the nuclear priesthood, we're going to take care of it just in the nick of time. That's what the people of St. Louis are being told. Don't worry, we're taking care of it. You won't be harmed. It won't be that bad. Not all of your children are going to die. I mean, this is the really pathetic thing about it. I mean, if you looked at these pictures of the runoff from the Bridgeton landfill, there is no way that you can say that there's not radioactivity in there. And yet every person working for the EPA is mandated basically to toe the party line. They are being ordered to not act on their conscience. And what happens at least in this country, even in yours, look what happened with Dana. You know, Dana's in some legal issue because he's got angry at some people. It's outrageous. I mean,
he's speaking out. He's saying something that goes against he's breaking the rules. That's what Dana's doing. He's breaking the rules.
He's not breaking he's breaking the rules of complicity.
Yes, that's what I mean.
He's breaking the rules of like keep your trap shut. Yeah. And you know, that's exactly what happens. And in fact, you want to know what this radio show is breaking this radio station breaks the rules. Our YouTube, this is one of the amazing things that I discovered in my interviews with the quote anti-nuke activist establishment people is they honestly do not, we're not part, all of us, there's several 100,000 people that I know of on the YouTubes and various YouTube sites that are actively engaged in speaking out and discussing and contacting and being engaged in the anti-nuclear movement, and none of those people are being roped in as normal people because we don't go along with the status quo. It's the same issue of we don't fit into their conformity.
It all ties together, right, Lonnie? When I say breaking the rules, I'm not talking about the rules of the land in the sense that...
We're not talking about the law. We're talking about the rules of keeping your trap shut. That's the number one rule. Is nobody... It's like that lady that worked for the Washington State Forestry Department. When I chatted with her, I said, what do you think of Fukushima? She said, you know what? We know it's really bad. She goes, I personally have seen two-headed snakes. I've seen two-headed deers. We know they're up there around Hanford. We know that it's contaminating the land and harming people, but if you say anything, you get fired immediately. Period.
Exactly. I think that this is something that you don't even need to be told that if you say something that goes against any common perception, the conformity, you don't have to be told. It's almost ingrained when we're children. We're learning to conform and not open our mouth, even though it's not specifically stated. It just sort of feels ominously ubiquitous how no one in the mainstream or the stars or people that have credibility in terms of the mainstream come out and say anything. I mean, this is out bloody outrageous. Out of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that have a public face, not one of them has actually come out definitively and said, we're in big trouble, people. And the Pacific is dying, and we need to do something now. None of them have come out. And I also think that this culture, which preoccupies me, how we function in this culture, that I actually feel like there is a romance behind this love we have, what I call the Grim Reaper. It's like if you look at haute couture, and there's another guy I keep track of sometimes, Manny Skywatch. He's like on the fringe. He's right on the edge of the mountain. And he talks about haute couture and the models that are held up as beautiful people. They're like corpses almost walking on a plank. Where did this romance for the Grim Reaper come from? Where did that start? Why are people so fascinated with these anorexic types that create fashion and that create what we believe to be high culture? It's called haute couture. It's like that's the French for high culture. And this romance with the Grim Reaper, this is so obvious to me in art that everything that's being exalted as being fabulous and wonderful has this necrotized, this kind of, like I would say, this romance with death. There's like a challenge. The challenge is to see how soon you can die or how ugly you can be when you're dying or something. It's like,
Okay, you know what this is about, though, really? This is what happens. It's not even asking the questions. It's all of this stuff. People are so gaslit. As you're talking, I got a notification on my Facebook page. There's somebody here who is telling us that Berkeley, the UC Berkeley, EDU, the frequently asked questions about what was released at Fukushima. Small amounts. The releases of radioactive stream led to the dispersal of small amounts of radioactivity material around the world during the spring of 2011. At UC Berkeley, we tested air, water, rainwater, foods, and were able to measure trace levels in California. This is why people are believing it's real. Because we have UC Berkeley out there saying small amounts were released, and it is what they're doing straight out is misinforming the fact that people, this person sent me this article. Have you read any of during the spring of it? It's astounding, Tom, that people just want to believe this pack of lies. It is not a small amount, and it's been ongoing. It's how can people believe that? This is where I'm dumbfounded. It's a intentional disregard for reality.
You remember Monty Python's Battle with the Black Knight? You remember that one? In Holy Grail, Search for the Holy Grail, and they come across the Black Knight, and King Arthur fights the Black Knight, cuts his arms and legs off, and the Black Knight says, "Let's call it a draw." I think this is kind of like a beautiful representation, I think, of civilizations. You got no arms, no legs, you got a torso and a head, and you say, let's call it a draw. We're really having to figure this out personally, Lonnie. The scientists out of Berkeley are not obviously going to reveal the severity of this. They're not going to. So it's kind of like a stab in the dark for each of us in the sense that every day we need to begin to invoke conscience. And how do we do that? You're doing the readings on YouTube. You're doing your radio show. I'm trying to make work that reflects this feeling I have, that reflects this part of me that wants to do the right thing. Because when I on my last moments, if I can conceive of my last moments, I would really, really be upset if I didn't try to help somehow. Like, I would be really upset, Lonnie. I know that this would be devastating to my psyche, to my being, my spirit, if I let this happen without trying to make a difference. Do you know what I mean?
That's how I feel. I mean, honestly, that's exactly how I feel. I wish I could just wake up and ignore this, but guess what? We can't just wake up and ignore it. And it's unconscionable for people to be taking the EPA and UC Berkeley's word about it, and these so-called scientists. I made up a protest sign that said, "When scientists lie, people die." And that's exactly what's happening here.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. I love that one.
Scientists are lying and people are dying.
Exactly.
They've been telling us for 5 years that the radiation from Fukushima released a small amount of trace elements 5 years ago into the ocean. It's just not that bad. But that is actually not the facts. That's not the truth. And yet people cling to those lies like they're a lifeboat. And really, it is an unconscionable act because we're literally offering up people to the money gods. It's so unconscionable. But this is the thing that I am dumbfounded. And it's interesting, this is a topic of our last show for 2015. Because 2015 has been a year where I personally made a lot of personal growth and broke some negative patterns of habits that I was involved in. And I think from that sprang a lot of good positive things, one of them being this radio show. But it's elevated my consciousness level to really look at the whole, like, prior to the end of this year and me doing these interviews, I actually really believe that the YouTube activists and the anti-nuke activists were all sort of one disconnected community, that we all had the same idea. And actually that is, nothing could be farther from the truth because of exactly what you said, the conformity issue. The people in the anti-nuke activists, the beyond nuclear types, the Arnie Gundersons, they really, really need to conform because they want to be still respected within the industry. They don't want to step out too far and say, you guys are a bunch of liars, you know what I mean? Like, because honestly, that's where I start cussing. Because they have just done nothing but continue to lie, and they're lying to young students in universities. They're lying to young students in universities. And that, to me, is the greater, most unconscionable thing, is they're convincing young students that radiation just isn't that harmful. Where's your facts? People say to me, well, where do you get your facts and figures? From John Goffman, Arthur Tamplin. Well, they've been discredited years ago. No, they actually were never discredited.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
you know what? Billy Johnson, who I really enjoy talking, we're in connection. Billy Johnson's keeping track of everything. I don't think he posts on YouTube, but he made a comment. And he said on one of my videos, Tom, it's too bad it's only 50 or 80 views or 100 views. And it should have a lot more views, because this is exactly how I feel, and I'm sure other people feel this way. And I said to Billy, I said, yeah, this whole issue of views on YouTube is, for me, not that important, because it's the energy I've decided to put out on this. It's like each person. If we look into the macrocosm, we're going to be overwhelmed. I look at this from my personal, every day I get up in the morning, I come to the studio and I have an impulse. I want to do, let's say I want to do a video, and I don't think that, it's only going to get 100 views and I'm not going to do it. It's the fact that I'm putting out this energy onto this medium, and my paintings as well, that will make a difference. I have a trust in myself in that regard, and every other person should trust the same way, that even the smallest effort, like to talk to your friend, even though they don't want to hear it, you just finish your sentence. You let them know, right? Whatever it takes. You take it to a level of an energy that has to, this is almost esoteric, but I have no other way of dealing with this, because are the scientists going to fix this? I don't think so. That's my question to you. Lonnie, do you think the scientists are actually going to come out? We're going to have to invent some solution here, which may come from a person that's 20 years old now, and that person needs to be convinced it's important to study this really hard. And if there is like 1 million of them, we'll figure it out. But the guys who put us here aren't going to fix it.
No, well, part of that is the guys who put us here are all going to be dying, along with a lot of the population. I mean, they're not. Right. You know what I mean? Like, the reality is, you can lie about the radiation, but the radiation won't lie about the harm it causes. It really will cause people harm. And frankly, we're sort of in the middle. We're 5 years in after Fukushima, and honestly, from everything I've researched about the nuclear thing over the last few years, this industry started 70 years ago. They built these nuclear power plants in the 60s with an idea that they were a stopgap, 20 years, 30 years, maximum 40 years. All of the nuclear power plants are hitting their end of life cycle. They must be shut down, and as long as we refuse to continue to shut them down, we're going to have nothing but more disasters. And
that's fact, Lonnie. That's fact, right? You're not making this up.
No.
This is a fact. This is a fact. If people listen to this, they were meant to be a stopgap. And then, geez, we're making lots of money on this. And all of these plants only produce 6% of the electric energy on the planet. When you think about it, the lie is so monumental that this energy, free, cheap, clean, is only producing 6% of the energy on our entire planet.
On top of the fact that it is not clean nor cheap.
Exactly. And the plants only last up to, reasonably within their specs, 20 years. And now it's been 50.
Well, not only that, but these plants, there are no two plants alike. They've never come up with a model that they like, that works, that's functional. Every single nuclear power plant is slightly different from the next one that's being built. They keep trying to redo it. They're doing redos. And, this is why San Onofre was shut down. They were trying to put in the wrong part in that plant, trying to save money. And a whistleblower outed them. But imagine if they had accomplished that task, we might not have Southern California right now. I mean, this is how insane that they are. And yet, this is the point here, Tom, is like, we're looking at 2016, and people need to be expecting many more nuclear problems in the next year. Fukushima is hitting its 5-year mark, and we know that they have pretty effectively really done the propaganda thing and the silencing of the facts. Like, we hear no real news out of Fukushima. We hear no information about the medical problems of the people. What we did hear recently was that the Fukushima prefecture, free rent for anybody who's pregnant to live in Fukushima. Can you imagine?
Out bloody rages.
I mean, When we know that babies in utero are the most affected of all the population from nuclear radiation, the Japanese government is giving an incentive for pregnant women to move in to the Fukushima prefecture.
Okay, what's my conclusion? Oh, okay, I'll give you my conclusion. This is obviously a plan because everyone that is promoting this knows damn well that this is a death sentence for both, for the mother and the child. So what's behind this, Lonnie? This is a plan. And this plan isn't 70 years old. It's probably 100 or even 200 years old. You cannot come up with this massive epic destruction just because, something didn't work very well. This is the sinister part of it. I'm not going to go into that. I have my thoughts on it. But I think this is a very devious long-term plan. And we're subjected to it like you call us lab rats, through and this is, I take that seriously from the point of view that a lab rat is a being that is observed in a much larger context than their own life. So if we have 70, 80 years of life, there are people that have looked at us and said, we can manipulate the situation over a long period of time, maybe 100, 200 years. And, there are people more qualified to go into the families that are behind this. And I think there are some very powerful entities behind the curtain. And I don't think, when people mention Rothschild or, the whole Bilderberger group, I think they're fronts. I think there is a much deeper long-term plan unfolding, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty for the Trinity. In my Trinity, consciousness, life, and conscience is under threat. On at least the two parts, life and conscience, is totally under threat. And this is a plan because we broke somewhere along the line. We broke the rules. We broke the rules, and we're going to get hammered. We're going to get hammered. And the only way I can fight this is my expertise as a painter, as an artist, is to evoke, to create work that expresses this. I'm contrary. I do not comply with the destruction. That's what I tell myself. I do not comply with the hurt and the destruction that is occurring. And I try to adjust my life every day to do the right thing. And fortunately, sometimes I think I have my studio. I spend 8 to 10 hours a day. And I can't do any wrong to anybody else. It's sort of like a refuge, and it's a bit of a joke among artists because they can be quite unpleasant sometimes. But if they're working in their studio on their art, they're really great people. So, so anyway, that sort of my impression, my impact is not about a million views on my YouTube. My impact is the fact I've decided to do it. Like I will not stop. Even though I had some very bad, I was beginning to get an ulcer with after the Palco stuff happened, and that's the intent, to try and create upset and fear in the people that might actually say something.
That's right.
The threats, I got letters sent to me.
It's intimidation. It's real physical intimidation. And it actually is very effective. It makes people, it's like when I got investigated by the Capitol Police in 2009. Until Fukushima, man, I just shut my trap. Like, really? I'm out here, speaking up for our country. And then what happens? They lie about me, and the Capitol Police investigated me for a week. And the guy who called me up finally thought it was kind of a joke. Like, really? They're investigating you? Like, I am completely not a threat. And I was like, this is the long arm of intimidation. This is about making me realize that they can do whatever they want to scare the crap out of me because I don't have the money to go after them for slander.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about, is they know that, with people, obviously the people running the show are the ones with assets and big money. Like, they can do whatever, pretty much. It's not just a fascist state. It's really a fascist world. I mean, this whole system, economic system that we're living in is really only about, the only thing that matters is money. They feel like that money, you can't have enough money.
But I'm going to ask you a question, Lonnie. when you understand, and people listen to programs that talk about money and all this, banking and the amounts of money, the trillions, is inconceivable to me anyway. I actually don't think it is money, Lonnie. And think about, my question would be, or my thought is, that they have all the money they could possibly ever want to have. What don't they have? What don't they have in control? It's our conscience. It's the last frontier for them to attack. Once that's gone, they own everything. Because, money is, they make money. It's like a piece of paper or a digital entry. You can do how much you want. They can put as many as they want. But if they control conscience, they control everything. So I think it doesn't come down to money, which they have unlimited amounts of. That's why you're right. They could break. If you had to do some lawsuit, they'll have you over a barrel. It's like the amount of money that we can raise compared to them, but they have unlimited amounts. So my thought is that the final frontier that we're facing now isn't consciousness, like all the gurus want to keep us. They keep us in the headlights, all the Eastern types that, and I have great affection for, people practicing yoga and the spiritual arts, whatever they might be. If it helps a person, that's fabulous. But when they are promoted as these beings of enlightenment, what the hell has enlightenment done for us in the last 100, 200 years? Even with people like Voltaire, who signed "Écraser l'infâme," expose the bastards. Meanwhile, he was buddies with Catherine, the Emperor of Russia. And, there's things that don't make sense to me. And one of them is enlightenment. There is no such thing unless conscience becomes part of that equation in each one of us. And that's what they're trying to get, Lonnie. They're trying to pummel us and get rid of through conformity, get rid of the last vestige of that trinity that we have, that mystery we're part of. And it's our conscience.
Well, what they want us to be is their voluntary slaves, essentially. I mean, They want us to, not balk when they're killing us, when they're killing our children. Look at the people in St. Louis. They're being so sweet. They're being so nice about it. They're doing exactly what Republic Services wants them to do. The government, they're doing, these people are being nice, going the slow route. What did Kay Dry say in your interview? Well, those of us who've in the anti-nuke industry, we're used to the slow train because we want to get this done. Really? I honestly, that blew me away. The reason that we're in this place is because we've accepted the slow train. This idea that we have, John Goffman over and over again in his book that I'm reading, Poison Power, he says, the calamity that will befall this nation if we move ahead with building all these nuclear power plants is unfathomable. And in fact, we have not seen the worst of it yet. It's coming. And I believe that 2016 is going to be the beginning of the end of, the nuclear industry can't keep propping itself up. They can build new things if they want, but these old nuclear. Look at where Zion nuclear power plant right off the Great Lakes. It's I think it's in Illinois, shut down 10, 15 years ago, still causing dramatic health effects on the people in that area, and nobody talks about it. Brain disorders in children, diseases, cancer clusters, and the denial that it is caused by nuclear radiation is just off the charts. Nobody wants to even discuss it. It's the one. I mean, Disney certainly did do mission accomplished. I mean, honestly, they sold us the peaceful atom, and people just cannot wrap their brain around it. The fact that we have been taken to the cleaners on the nuclear stuff.
How successful GoFundMe has been. People ask for money, right? I will never ask for money ever. If you want to buy a painting, you can buy a painting. I will not ask for money. And people should ask for money that, like Dana is, and we need to support Dana in his campaign, because he is a voice that we cannot lose Dana's voice. That we cannot lose Dana's voice. But I was thinking as a sort of acerbic addition to my day-to-day life, I was thinking of doing a GoFundMe. Go fund my destruction, or go fund destruction. Have like a fictitious GoFundMe page. See how many people actually latch onto it.
I wonder if that's allowed. I wonder if GoFundMe would actually allow that page to happen.
Go fund destruction. Yeah, they may be. They're ethical. Maybe they have some ethicals.
I think they do.
Yeah, probably. But I was just thinking, it's like, how can you publicize this epic destruction? How can it be put into the frontal lobe? And I actually, my conclusion is, that's sort of cynical, my thought, but my conclusion is that it has to happen every day in each person's life in some form or other. And I think that'll escalate very quickly, Lonnie. I don't think it'll take 5 years. I think we could do this a shift very, very quickly once this hits the front lobe in the right way. I have, a degree of hope. And I always distinguish between hope and faith, because faith is a kind of, I think civilizations are based on faith, but hope creates something in us that is part of that eternity, that feeling that we can be better, that we can actually accomplish things. I think it's a good feeling. People need to feel the hope, especially at this time. It's like I see lots. I live in a town where not very many people, but they're all quite old, and there have been quite a number of funerals over Christmas. So there is this sort of feeling at this time where people want to give up hope or just throw in the towel. Don't do it. The hope is everything. And
well, I don't know what it's going to take for people to feel encouraged. This is the thing. We do face, this is a real, I hate to put the word enemy because I don't want to give it that kind of power, but it is a serious challenge that we're facing, because the people that are running the nuclear industry have absolute power. And it is causing mass deaths. When you look at the mass death list for 2015, and for people to just ignore this and say, well, it's just from what global warming is, an outrage, frankly.
Is there a list? I didn't know. Is there a mass death list?
There's a mass, 819 known mass death events in 96 countries or territories. Just December alone, the list goes from December, they mark December 1st, through December, 24th so far. Thousands, I'll just tell you these. Thousands of dead fish wash up on the beach in Pilbara, Australia. Lots of them are in South America. Thousands of seabirds are turning up dead in Kemachak Bay, Alaska. Tens of thousands of chickens, geese, and ducks killed due to the avian flu across southwestern France. 45 plus dead dolphins washed ashore in Calabar Province, Oman. Thousands of dead fish, a quote mystery in Melbourne Beach, Florida. Thousands of fish suddenly die in Lake Jakarta. 1,100 birds found dead in the wildlife of Kansas in America. 200 birds found dead near a lake in Wisconsin. Many dead turtles found along the coast of Saktonsi Tamarat in Thailand. Thousands of dead fish washed ashore in Brevard County, Florida. Thousands of dead cattle due to flooding in northwest England. Dozens of dead birds washed up on beaches in Mississippi. Thousands of more birds killed due to the avian flu. Tons of dead fish and other marine animals washed ashore in Leyte, Philippines. 18,800 chickens killed to avian flu. The avian flu is killing lots of chickens, as we can see. 23 dolphins stranded, 16 dead in Baja, California. Dozens of peacocks found dead in a forest in India. Large fish kill in Mobile Bay, Gulf of Mexico. Thousands of...
Amazing.
We haven't even gotten to the beginning of it. December 5th, 30 seals, 18 dolphins in Peru. 12,900 birds. If people are not aware of these are not things that are talked about. And the reason people aren't aware is we used to have these little printing presses where the reporters would put the information down, and there was nobody stopping them from reporting the news. Like we're on this radio show, we don't get a lot of, our producer on this show does not tell us that we can't talk about something. Unlike every other mainstream news media, you are not allowed to talk about radiation or the mass deaths. They can talk about the racial. They can talk about the racial tension in Ferguson, Missouri, but 5 miles away, where the Westlake landfill in the Bridgeton community is being radiologically. I put up a short video last night. I don't think I posted it yet, but I was thinking about this. People are outraged over one cop killing a young kid. Whether he was armed or not, it's caused this big hullabaloo in the United States for the last year and a half. While 5 miles away, we have children being killed by the nuclear industry, dying of cancer.
Yeah. Yeah, well, why do they do that? Because the headlights are pretty powerful off a cop killing a black youth. It's like the headlights are really bright in that one, and you miss what's next door, right? The extinction level event that is going on. When you were reading this, my thought, actually, a person that came to mind was Rupert Sheldrake, who's a philosopher as much as a hardcore scientist. He's done his studying. He talks about morphogenic waves. And what his studies have shown is that we're all connected, meaning that not just people, but all life is somehow connected in mysterious. It's a mystery. We don't understand.
At the quantum level, that's what Deepak Chopra talks about that too. At the quantum level, we're all connected. There's no breaking us apart.
When you're reading that list, Lonnie, you realize that we already know all this. Okay, so there is like a deep, profound impact occurring on our psyches, on our spirits, with all this destruction, because these creatures aren't alive just to die. We all experience whatever, whether we're a gnat or a fruit fly for 5 hours. We all have this desire to live. Otherwise, everything would end, right? There is this spiritual there's like a focus to life, which isn't like, oh, I want to die. No, we want to live. We want to experience. We want to learn something. I don't know what. We're going through this mystery. Now imagine this mass extinction going on. What kind of effect that has. And if you check out Rupert Sheldrake's morphogenic waves, he talks about this connection as much as he can scientifically. He's done the studies. It shows unequivocally we're connected. And imagine what happens, even though it's not happening to me right here, right now, it is affecting me. It has a deep, profound effect on my spirit. And every person, no matter how much they want to conform, still are affected by this. So it's really, in Star Trek terms, putting a ripple into the continuum. It's like, there's a real nasty ripple going through our continuum of this Trinity that I want to call it that. I don't know. Call me a weird artist. I like the Trinity, the consciousness, life, and conscience.
Well, I think Trinity is kind of an eternal. I think the things in threes resonate in humans. I think that's things in threes have a sort of a spiritual connection with us. That's why I think that a lot of the major religions have things in threes. There's those that seems to be sort of a universal theme within the human condition.
But that thought that when you were reading that list, is like I have a lump in my throat almost, that feeling like my heart's sinking, because like everything that dies this way is creating a real upset in that continuum of, I don't know what to call it. There are very few words for it because we don't really understand, but we know it's there through our sense feeling, deep down feeling. And when somebody is unjustly killed, or isn't there like a legal thing? One innocent person killed is like 100 going free. Kind of idea.
Yeah.
That there is no balance in this feeling. This makes no sense. It's like that experience that we're all going through, even though we're in denial, is still having an effect, which will affect what I consider. I could go into this about what I feel about eternity. It doesn't end when we die. And I don't have any proof. Nobody has any proof. Nobody has ever come back. But we all sense it. We all know because we're all connected. And it's not connected because we have like a wireless phone on our ears. It's different. It's like, or maybe it isn't. I don't know. But you know what I mean?
This is why last week on the radio show, that's what I was saying, in fact, on Christmas Day. Like, it's really up to us to, like, change the hearts and minds. Like, I believe if we focus our own minds on changing the hearts and minds of people in power to face this, that we can actually we can actually move their spirits and move their hearts. I really believe if we focus on changing their hearts and minds, it's kind of like Reiki healing. You know what I mean? You can heal somebody from a distance.
Right.
But, yeah. And I really think that part of what's happened is we've just given up on these people. And so we've like, well, they're all corrupt. Well, I think they may have all been corrupted. That doesn't mean they can't come back and see some point of reasonability. Just because they have been complicit in the past does not mean that they will not stand up against the crimes that are happening. Because at a certain point, it's going to hit tilt for them also. I mean, at a certain point, their children are going to start dying also. I think about the mayor of St. Louis and the governor of Missouri, and they're all in, basically the citizens of St. Louis hand-delivered over 12,000 signatures for a petition for the governor of St. Louis to declare Westlake landfill an emergency so that the people can get immediate funding to help them move away. Yeah. That has not happened. That happened in October, and right now the governor is declaring a state of emergency for the flooding, but no conversation is being had over the radiological disaster that's being spread all over the place up there.
Well, I think you just, what you're talking about, I think you would agree that once this kicks in, this part of us that wants to do the right thing, whether or not politicians go along will be irrelevant, because when a large group of people decide to do something, we're going to get it done. Right. We don't need their approval, and if they don't come along, we'll just ignore them. I mean, forget about them, right? It's like right. That's like a no-brainer. Once people begin to decide to do the right thing, stand up for life, then we're going to do the right thing. Everybody else will come along. I mean, they're not going to buck that. They're just getting paid by this superstructure of unlimited money, and they think they're on the winning team. So let them think whatever. We need to personally change ourselves, and things, I don't know how far down the rabbit hole we've gone with this one. I don't want to end on a bad note in this.
I don't think it's a bad note, but I think it's a good note. I think it's actually really, it's up to us. It's about all of us taking action in the way that we feel. We can't tell anybody else what action to take. No. They're moved by their own spirit on what they're supposed to do just by looking at the facts. And I trust the fact that when they take action, it's going to be the correct action. And if it's the incorrect action, then they change their behavior and do something different. I mean, it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall, but if all of us take action, we will move this down the train and there will be a solution. I really do believe that we're here on purpose to help save the planet from this ultimate destruction. Some of us are going to survive.
I've heard you say that several times, actually, that you actually feel this, I guess, purpose, for lack of a better word, that somehow your life has focused in on this because you've recognized something in yourself. You're a different person than you were 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, for sure. And really the reality is I do feel this very strongly, like all of us that are in this time frame, that were born into this time frame, we're here on purpose. None of us are here on accident. And our voices do matter. It does matter what we say and what we do and where we go. And if each of us took that responsibility seriously and stopped looking backwards and stopped blaming the past, because we can't fix the past. We can take responsibility looking forward. We will find the solutions. I really believe that. Here comes my ever famous phone calls right at 9 o'clock. Non-stop. It's like they just can't wait. It's going to ring 6 times. I'm not going to hang up on this guy. I'm sorry.
Emergency.
Oh, man. So this is how we're going to end the day's show today, you guys. The very last show of the day. And in the next year, I promise you I'm going to fix the phone thing. I have to figure that one out. So, Ackermann, thank you for joining us. He has H Thomas Ackermann YouTube channel, and you can view him there. Thank you for joining us, Ackermann. Happy New Year, and we'll talk to you guys in the new year. Put your courage feet on and take the action that you know is right for you.
All the best to you, Lonnie, and a big hug.
Okay, thank you so much. Talk to you guys later.
Bye.